watching News Central Television. I am Judith TB. Here are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. And we'll begin the news in Europe, where crowds are gathering along the Mall in central London as the city prepares to mark the 80th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day, which commemorates the end of fighting in Europe during the Second World War. Among those present are families enjoying traditional cream teas and revelers continuing celebrations from the night before. The day's events are set to begin at midday. A military parade and a flypast by the Red Arrows will headline the commemorations. King Charles III, senior members of the royal family, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer are expected to attend. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced an additional 100 million euros to attract foreign researchers to France, positioning Europe as a sanctuary for academic freedom. Speaking at the Choose France for Science conference at the Sorbonne, Macron said Europe must become a refugee for global researchers facing political restrictions, particularly in the United States. The initiative aligns with a wider 500 million euros plan unveiled by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, aimed at making the EU more attractive to displaced scientists. Both leaders appear to criticize former U.S. President Donald Trump's policies, citing cuts to science funding and tighter visa regulations. France is also offering support through its universities and research institutions, promising infrastructure, grants, and tax incentives for selected projects. Meanwhile, several hundred people gathered at the Grand Mosques in Paris to pay tribute to Abubakar Cissé, the 22-year-old Malian man fatally stabbed at a mosque in La Grande Combe, southern France. Now, the ceremony was marked by calls for unity and equal treatment of all citizens, regardless of background. Cissé's murder has sparked national debate over whether the attack was motivated by racism or religious hatred. Authorities say the suspect acted alone, driven by a personal urge to kill, though investigations continue into possible racial and religious motives. The community mourns a young man remembered for his kindness and service to the mosque.
J'ai cité le Premier ministre parce qu'il a eu des mots forts au moment où on est encore en train d'ergoter sur est-ce que c'est le bon mot islamophobe ou pas. Je trouve que c'est indécent de parler de la sorte et je crois qu'aujourd'hui, et je le disais tout simplement tout à l'heure, il ne faut pas que l'affaire malheureuse d'Aboubacar Cissé soit encore une rupture de plus. Il faut plutôt que ce soit le ciment de l'unité républicaine. Chacun s'oppose à l'autre, chacun s'élève contre l'autre, alors que nous voulons, nous aujourd'hui, construire des ponts. Nous sommes une république, elle est indivisible et nous sommes ses enfants. Il ne faut pas aujourd'hui que les pouvoirs publics fassent des différences dans ses enfants. C'est insupportable, on a tenu à le dire.
Monsieur Retailleau n'a pas été au rendez-vous de la République dans le cas de ce crime absolument horrible, alors même qu'on voit bien, à contrario, que la figure du musulman, depuis de nombreuses années, est fabriquée comme une figure de bouc émissaire, est fabriquée comme une figure repoussoire, à partir de laquelle ou contre laquelle on peut dire à peu près n'importe quoi, à partir du moment où on commence sa phrase en disant que c'est en défense de la laïcité.
Still in the region, Romania's Prime Minister on Monday said he was considering ending a pro-Western coalition government. Now, this comes a day after its presidential candidate crashed out of the first round of elections, heightening political uncertainty. Had right Eurosceptic Judge Simon decisively swept the ballot on Sunday with some 41% of votes and will face Bucharest mayor, and that's Nicosa Dan, an independent centrist, in a May 18th runoff. Meanwhile, citizens in Bucharest have expressed a mix of optimism and concern about the country's political direction.
domnul Simion, dacă într-adevăr va ieși președinte, cred că va dori ce este mai bine pentru țara asta. Și pentru noi, că de-aia cred că toată lumea a fost și l-a votat, că are încredere în dânsul. Acum, vedem, nu știu ce să zic, de frică nu mi-e frică și cu siguranță nu se va îndepărta și nu va renunța la Uniunea Europeană nici domnul George Simion.
Îmi place, sincer, cel mai mult spiritul lui de luptă și să o luăm și pe partea cealaltă, sincer, nu prea mai cu cine. Asta este un adevăr trist. Adică dacă se putea să rămână Călin Georgescu, era ok, dar de altfel nu prea avem altă opțiune.
To North America, where we understand that President Donald Trump is making headlines again, this time calling for the infamous Alcatraz prison to be rebuilt and reopened. Once known as America's most secure jail, the facility has been a tourist landmark for over 50 years. News Center's international correspondent Afia Hagen has the story.
President Trump announced today that he's ordered federal officials to rebuild and reopen Alcatraz prison, an infamous symbol of America's tough-on-crime past. Closed since 1963 and located off San Francisco's coast, the prison once housed notorious criminals like mob boss Al Capone. In a statement posted on Truth Social, Trump said Alcatraz could be substantially enlarged to detain what he described as America's most violent criminals. The move underscores Trump's broader agenda to crack down on crime, particularly offences attributed to migrants, a major policy push in his second term. But critics have quickly dismissed the proposal. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who represents San Francisco, responded sharply on social media, calling the plan not serious, emphasizing Alcatraz's current role as a national park that attracts over 1 million tourists annually. Alcatraz was famously expensive to operate, costing 3 times more than other federal prisons, mainly due to logistical challenges in supplying the isolated island. Despite its history of daring escapes and notoriety, including the infamous 1962 breakout that inspired Clint Eastwood's film Escape from Alcatraz, the prison shut down due to unsustainable operating costs. Legal experts are already raising concerns about the practicality and legality of Trump's latest announcement, particularly in the context of his controversial immigration and deportation policies, including using the Enemies Act, a law typically reserved for wartime, to deport migrants. With the political debate heating up, Trump's Alcatraz plan might capture headlines, but whether it moves beyond rhetoric remains uncertain. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a 100% tariff on all movies produced outside the United States, escalating his trade disputes to the film industry. In a post on Truth Social, Trump claimed Hollywood is dying a very fast death due to foreign governments offering incentives to lure film productions away from America, calling it a national security threat and messaging and propaganda. The tariff, which Trump has ordered the Commerce Department to begin enforcing, aims to revive domestic filmmaking, but details remain unclear, including whether it covers streaming releases or American studios filming abroad. Industry leaders warn the move could harm both U.S. and international film sectors, with Hollywood executives scrambling for clarity. Interesting times. Let's go to a short break, shall we? When we come back, we'll tell you that Israel expands operations in the enclave. The details of this and more just after the break. Stay with us. And you're welcome back. Vietnam's National Assembly has opened its 9th session in Hanoi, marking the longest and most ambitious legislative meeting in its history. Scheduled to run for 37 working days in 2 phases, the session will focus on key constitutional amendments and major reforms aimed at modernizing the country's political and administrative systems. National Assembly Chairman Tran Tan Man described the session as a historic turning point, emphasizing efforts toward digital transformation, sustainable development, and institutional streamlining. Lawmakers will consider 54 items, including changes to the 2013 Constitution, new laws on personal data protection, and resolutions to boost private economic growth and national infrastructure, such as railways. The Prime Minister of the country highlighted Vietnam's calm and coordinated response to recent U.S. tariff policies, underscoring the country's diplomatic and economic resilience.
Công bố chính sách thuế quan mới, chúng ta đã bình tĩnh, bản lĩnh, chủ động tiến hành đồng bộ nhiều biện pháp ứng phó kịp thời, linh hoạt, phù hợp và đạt kết quả bước đầu tích cực. Việt Nam là một trong những nước đầu tiên Hoa Kỳ đồng ý đàm phán và ngày 7 tháng 9 này sẽ tiến hành.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has called for stronger cooperation between the United States and Peru to robustly deter China's potential threats in the hemisphere. Now, this was during talks with the Peruvian foreign minister at the Pentagon. Now, Hegseth's remarks reflect growing U.S. concerns over China's expanding influence in Latin America, particularly its control of land and critical infrastructure through Chinese companies. He emphasized that Beijing is investing in the region for military advantage and unfair economic gain, urging regional governments to work together to counter these moves. Hegseth's comments come amid heightened U.S.-China tensions and follow similar warnings about Chinese involvement in strategic assets like the Panama Canal.
States of America is one of a very, very important friend of ours, a very good ally also, a historic ally in many things, not only in things that are concerning development and progress of the peoples and the wealth and welfare of the people, something that of course we all long for the American people and of course for Peruvians, but also in matters regarding defense and security. You just mentioned, Mr. Secretary of Defense, the 2 or 3 things that unite us. We are also, let's say, a target of illegal immigration, of illegal mining, illegal also felling of trees.
Let's also tell you that jury selection began on Monday in New York in the high-profile sex trafficking trial of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Now, prosecutors and defense lawyers are set to screen up to 150 potential jurors ahead of opening statements scheduled for 12th of May. Combs faces serious charges, including sex trafficking and prostitution, accused of coercing women into prolonged sexual encounters he allegedly referred to as freak-offs. The artist has strongly denied all allegations and has rejected a plea deal. If convicted, he could face a life sentence. The trial represents a major legal showdown with potentially career-ending consequences for the hip-hop icon. And off to the Middle East, where Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson on Monday reaffirmed the country's position on nuclear development, stating during his weekly press briefing that the peaceful use of nuclear energy in the Iranian nations is the Iranian nation's rightful claim. Now, his remarks come amid renewed international scrutiny. In a televised interview with Fox News, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called on Iran to halt uranium enrichment, arguing that only nations with nuclear weapons engage in such activity. Tehran, however, insists its nuclear program is purely for civilian use and denies any intention of developing nuclear arms. The diplomatic standoff highlights mounting tensions over Iran's atomic activities and broader concerns surrounding global non-proliferation efforts.
موضع ما چارچوب اصولی که بر اساس اون ما وارد گفتگوهای غیر مستقیم با آمریکا شدیم غیر قابل تغییر هست. ما البته در فضای عمومی و فضای رسانه‌ای مذاکره نمی‌کنیم، اما اونچه که مشخص هست مواضع اصولی جمهوری اسلامی ایران در رابطه با حق ملت ایران برای استفاده صلح‌آمیز از انرژی هسته‌ای یک موضع ثابت هست، مبتنی بر منطق و حقوق بین‌الملل. برخی از صحبت‌های سفسطه‌آمیزی که در مورد وجود منابع عظیم فسیلی در ایران و عدم نیاز به انرژی هسته‌ای مطرح میشه واقعاً هیچ مبنای علمی و واقعی نداره. این حق ملت ایران هست که
Israel's Security Cabinet has approved plans for a significant expansion of its military offensive in Gaza, potentially including taking and holding territory. Tens of thousands of reservists are being mobilized, but implementation appears to be delayed until after President Donald Trump's visit to the region next week. News Central's international correspondent Afia Hagen brings us the details.
Israel's Security Cabinet unanimously approved plans to dramatically escalate its military campaign against Hamas, potentially seizing control of parts of Gaza. The Israeli military confirmed today it's calling up tens of thousands of reservists to support what could become an extended ground operation. The decision comes amid growing frustration in Israel over stalled hostage negotiations. Israeli officials say the offensive aims to pressure Hamas into releasing the 59 hostages still held in Gaza, though critics argue that military escalation has so far failed to secure their release. Security Cabinet Minister Zeev Elkin insisted there's still time for Hamas to negotiate before President Trump's upcoming visit, scheduled for mid-May. The plan reportedly includes establishing an expanded buffer zone along Gaza's borders, allowing Israel greater leverage in ceasefire talks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu indicated this operation marks a shift from raids to sustained occupations of territory. The humanitarian crisis is deepening, however. Israel, which imposed a blockade on Gaza 2 months ago, also announced plans to restart aid distribution, but under strict military supervision. The UN has condemned this, warning that it violates basic humanitarian principles. Families of hostages have sharply criticized the government, accusing leaders of prioritizing territorial gains over rescuing loved ones. Polls suggest a majority of Israelis share this frustration. With tensions high and international scrutiny increasing, Israel's expanded Gaza offensive could reshape the conflict dramatically, but whether it achieves its aims or deepens the humanitarian crisis remains uncertain. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
Israel has issued call-up orders for tens of thousands of military reservists as it prepares to escalate its operations in Gaza. Now, the mobilization follows approval from the Israeli Security Cabinet to expand the military campaign, potentially including a full takeover of the territory. Now, the move has triggered a renewed alarm from the international community. The United Nations and humanitarian agencies continue to voice urgent concerns over worsening conditions in Gaza, where residents are facing severe shortages of food, medicine, and other vital supplies. More than 2 months into a total Israeli blockade, the risk of widespread famine remains dangerously high. Aid groups warn that without immediate relief, the humanitarian situation will worsen significantly in the coming days.
Issuing tens of thousands of call-up orders to reservists in order to strengthen and expand our operations in Gaza. Not to occupy, but to expand the military operation. Why? To increase the pressure on Hamas to release our hostages. In additional areas, Israel will destroy all terrorist infrastructure. The cabinet also approved the possibility of further humanitarian aid distribution when necessary. Hamas have hijacked the humanitarian aid that was sent in 2 months ago. But now, Israel's assessment is that for months to come, there is enough food for everyone right now. And of course, that is also in Hamas's hands.
Off to Asia, where UN Chief Antonio Guterres on Monday urged that nuclear-armed foes, Pakistan and India, must exert maximum restraint and step back from the brink of war. Now, this is as tensions between the South Asian neighbors have now soared. Now, New Delhi has blamed Islamabad for backing a deadly attack on tourists on the Indian side of the disputed region of Kashmir last month, sparking a series of heated threats and diplomatic tit-for-tat measures. On Monday, the Pakistan military said it had conducted a second missile test since the standoff began.
Tensions between India and Pakistan are at their highest in years. I deeply respect and I am profoundly grateful to the government of people of both countries and their significant contributions to the work of the United Nations, not least UN peacekeeping. And so it pains me to see relations reaching a boiling point. I understand the raw feelings following the awful terror attack in Pahalgan on 22 April. I once again strongly condemn that attack and extend my condolences to the families of the victims.
A Cambodian court has sentenced Rong Chon, an advisor to the Nation Power Party, to 4 years in prison for incitement charges, a legal instrument frequently used by authorities to suppress dissent. The ruling also strips him of the right to vote or hold public office. The case stems from Chon's involvement to land dispute investigations and his criticism of a recent border visit by the Prime Minister Hun Manet. The court ruled that his actions incited social unrest. Chon has vowed to appeal the ruling, which he described as unjust. His sentencing adds to a growing list of legal actions targeting opposition figures in Cambodia. Other recent cases have seen similar penalties handed down to political opponents amid mounting concerns over the country's slide into authoritarianism. Now, human rights organizations continue to condemn these judicial crackdowns. And that's all we can take on Beyond the Continent. Now, do remember that you can send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV on all social media platforms. You can always watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Go TV channel 23, Star Times channel 274. We're also on Avo TV, and you can stream us live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Good night.